Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pixelated Perfect podcast. I am super excited for today's episode. We have Yorbi here with us. Hi, Yorbi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
We're so excited to have you. So I know Yorbi because we connected through Friends of Figma community in Buenos Aires. And so I had some quick conversations with him, but I know he's doing some really, really awesome things in the design space. So I'm really excited to kind of dive deeper into his career. So super excited to jump in. So let's hit the ground running, Yorbi. Can you tell me when design first came into your life?
Probably that was like when I was so little, like I was like 12, 13, 14, I don't remember. But it was back in the day where we didn't have like the things that we do right now, like the platforms or like the tools. I remember having like Photoshop and trying to invest myself into understanding how you can connect to the internet and see stuff right there, like the banners. I remember like the banners at that time. Google was new, so it was like everything so new to me and so interesting because I really love art somehow. Being a graphic designer, it's like somehow you love art in a different way, like digital type of art, 100%. So probably when I was little, I was so into it, and I found like a place being on a computer and creating stuff. I do remember creating stuff for celebrities. Like we didn't have Twitter back in the day. We have like blogs or stuff where we were creating. I don't know if you went through that too, like creating banners for celebrities or signs on forums. Like that was back in the day the things that I did that made me probably became a graphic designer or a digital graphic designer. Yeah. So that's where it all started. I studied graphic design in Venezuela, and then I moved to Argentina. This is where I'm living right now, in Buenos Aires. I moved here I just came out of college from graphic design, and that was like my first job. I get into Encender, which is an agency. That was like my first approach to the field, you know. I knew like I wanted to be on the web design type of part. That was like that's where I meant to be. I knew that back in the day. And that's how it all started. Like I started working on an agency with really good like clients. Like for example, they have River Plate. I don't know if you have heard of it. the team, yeah, the soccer team.
Yeah, yes.
And that's where it all started.
Yeah, no, that's great. So some questions. I also first want to say, I think I was saying this on the last podcast for everyone that listened to the last one, is that I also got started with Photoshop, and I would like take my friends' faces and put them on like celebrities or like next to like their celebrity crush. So it looked like they were together. That was like my thing. It's like my friends all wanted one. Fun. Yeah, it was super fun. I think that's a great way to kind of get started in like the digital art space. So I can totally relate.
Yes.
So you studied graphic design in Venezuela. Why did you move to Argentina?
Wow, that's such a nice question. I moved to Argentina because of many reasons, but one was because I traveled there as a vacation, and I fell really in love with the city because it was like so culture, like fully culture. Like walking on the street, you can see art, you know, like you can see many good reference of art in Argentina. Like the industry right there, it's like really fully of culture. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but
yeah,
but that was one of the main reasons. I was actually going to move to Mexico, but then I traveled to Argentina, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Like this is so beautiful. Like the people is really good, like really friendly. And I really have that connection with the kind of art that I was talking about at the beginning. And in fact, one of the first jobs I had in Argentina was as a graphic designer. So that was really good, like
Yeah.
somehow I got to Argentina, and 2 weeks later I got the job, and that was so crazy and really like I felt like so blessed. And I was in that job for 5 years. That's a nice
Wow.
thing to say too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like us design actually just generational. Like I feel like no one stays in a company that long. So I think that's
Yeah.
awesome. Like that's awesome
Yeah.
is that's like your first job and you feel like you had that connection and could like grow there. So yeah, I want to dive deeper in this first job because I think we want to know more.
Yes.
But I also love Buenos Aires, and I think there is something cultural. I think it's like being there, you feel the energy of the city, and I can totally understand from an art designer standpoint wanting to be there. There's just so much in that space like happening all around you.
So much. Yes.
Yes.
Like I love walking around. Like
Yeah.
you can walk everywhere and find stuff and find like a good
Yes.
spot. And that's really beautiful. Yeah, that's really pretty. That's really beautiful.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, yes, we were talking before this about our love for Argentina and how I'm ready to go back. So yes, I can relate. So yeah, so how did you get this first job? You said you moved to Buenos Aires and in 2 weeks you had a job. Like that's awesome. Like what was that
Yes.
like?
I remember getting there to Buenos Aires, not knowing where to go. First, I think I was looking on LinkedIn. I don't know, places on the internet like where to like looking for a job. But then I went to Twitter and was like using hashtags. I got to Buenos Aires job opportunity as a web designer, and I sent my resume to the email that they were putting on the tweet. That was like 7 years ago. I don't know. It's crazy because probably Twitter right now is a good place to find a job or something. But
Yeah.
at that time, it was like, well, I'm gonna try, and that was
Yeah.
like really good. I sent my email with my stuff, and I had the meeting like 2 days later. So I got to meet with
Wow.
them, and it was like really small agency back in the day. We were like 20 people. When I left, 5 years later, there were like 100 people on the company. So it grew as I did. I remember growing in that agency, like because as you say, 5 years is a lot of time.
Yeah.
Working in an agency where the times are like really fast and you have to move fast to grow. That was like such a nice place to like grow professionally and personally, because the people were good, like really helpful. Because we were like really small, we have this like kind of family connection. And me moving from another country, I was the only one, I was the only like foreign there in the company when we started.
Right.
Because then we were still growing, and of course we were like adding more people. But it was like a place or a family to me at that point. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So question about, I think what listeners would want to know is like, what is it like starting in a company that's small and growing? Like, I want to hear how you grew, but also like how did the dynamics of the company change?
I don't know where to start, but probably because you can see the growing on the company. You can see how the projects start like flowing and like, hey, we have this to do and we have this other thing and we got this. And you can see the proudness on the company, like on the family, because this was a family. But you can see like how everything starts to develop on the outside, like seeing it from this point of view right now, like of course living that as my first job in the field, you can see that like, wow, that's a nice place to start and grow. An agency, I can say it's a good place to start as a graphic designer, because you can understand every field or everything that is connected to the field of graphic design or web design or product design or UX design. You can understand what a manager does, or you can understand what the salespeople does. And that's something that you can grow with. Like, you just don't see it, you can learn from that. Probably that's something that I'm really like, I don't know how to say this, but like, I'm really good about the fact that I was part of this process of this growing.
Yeah.
It was about the celebration of the fact that we were growing. It was about the celebration of the fact that we were like connecting and having understanding about each other and learning about each other, because I was a teacher to other people that were part of the team, that were being part of the team. I remember I had a team of 10 people, where we had UI designers and front-end developers, where we were like delivering landing pages for our clients, or we were part of the website of our client. For example, as I say, Riverplay, Nestle. We had like really good clients, and that was good too. I even had to travel with them, like with the company. I got to travel to Brazil and to Colombia, and that was good too, because somehow they value your work, and they value you, because being in a company for so long, so it was like giving my mark and they giving them, so it was like a trade-off because of the growing, they were growing and I was growing professionally and personally, like meeting so many people and getting to work with so many amazing people. That was good.
Yeah, I can like feel how nostalgic it was, like how much of a good time it was being there, and I think that's really wonderful. And I also love what you said about like, that's a great place to start, because you can see what it's like to try out so many things, like graphic design, UI design, manager, salesperson. And I think especially as like a first step in your career, it's really great to like be surrounded by all of these options that you have. So I think that's really awesome. And I think that's a great case for being at an agency. I think that you do get exposed to so many different things, and that's a great start to a career.
Yes, definitely. And I can say that helps you to like know where to go. For example, like understand how will you go professionally on your career path. Like, well, I know this thing about sales and I know these things about leadership or management, and okay, I can be more like a product designer type of thing, or I can do product lead or design lead, like you can reference from those knowledge.
Yeah, well said. I think that's great, and that's really
Yeah.
awesome. So you started did you start as a graphic designer, and within those 5 years, what were those different roles that you took on?
Well, I started as a web designer. I
Oh,
was the
okay.
first web designer on the company, yeah. And then I started growing, and then UX came along, like the UX thing or boom. And I was
Yes.
like, okay, I'm really interested in this. Then Figma came in my life in 2017, I do remember. Like exactly that. Probably I was on Twitter and I saw like a post from someone probably that was, oh my God, how did I find out about Figma? And I do remember not having a Mac, and that was the reason I downloaded Figma, because I didn't have a Mac back in the day. Like I had a Windows, and so I couldn't have a Sketch, and I was like the outsider because I didn't have a Sketch, and I was using Photoshop and Illustrator
Yes.
to web design things. um, so I found Figma. They didn't have anything like what they do have now. That wasn't it. It was so
Yeah.
simple, but it was like really worth it. And Figma has always been like open to the collaboration. Like you can share a link since the beginning, and that was really good to me because because I could share my work with some others, with my clients or stakeholders or other teammates. Like that was so easy, and I actually got to add Figma to the team at that moment in my life.
Nice.
Then all these 10 people, all these 10 persons that were part of the team were using Figma. We're learning Figma too, because Figma was really, really new at that
Yeah.
moment. So yeah, that was it.
Yeah, I love your love letter to Figma. I also was a pretty early adopter of Figma, and like I don't remember the exact moment like you, but I do remember when I found Figma, I was like, everything's gonna change from here. Like my career is gonna change, because when I started, it was web design, and I was doing it in Photoshop, and like no one wants to remember those days, like
No.
at all.
Fun fact about Argentina is that I found out they use more Illustrator than Photoshop for web design. That's a fun fact.
Interesting.
Yes, it was like weird to me. I got edit the edit files from Illustrator from like I was why is people using Illustrator to web design, because it's harder there. I don't know
Right.
why. Yeah, but that's a fun fact. You can ask any Argentinian like what's the main tool they used to use, and they probably going to say Illustrator. That's nice. You
We
can
should,
ask the students, yes.
yeah, I want to ask, like on our Instagram, I want to like open up before Sketch, before Figma, like what did you guys use? Photoshop
Yes.
or?
Yes.
I like that question.
That's
Okay.
a nice question, yes.
Yes, that's really interesting.
I'm more team Photoshop though.
Yeah, I honestly never even thought to use Illustrator for like I would do it for branding, not for
yeah,
not for like layouts, or like
harder.
InDesign if you're laying something out.
Oh,
But I don't know.
remember
That brings me back.
I remember having like the smart objects. I don't know how to say in Photoshop. I
Yeah.
don't remember, but having a smart object to like using a logo on a website and like replicate it everywhere,
Yes.
and not losing the connection as you do right now with components in Figma. Like,
Oh my gosh.
yes.
And you had to line everything. Oh my gosh. Like horror stories. Okay, I can't talk about it anymore. The awful. And yeah, I mean, Photoshop was awful. I moved to Sketch, and like, of course, Sketch was way easier, but there was still something missing. I think it was definitely like having to share files and everyone had to work. And so obviously there was a space for Figma. And when it came in, it really truly was like life changing. And at that time I was freelancing, and so I was remote, so it was really hard to work with other designers and then to share to customers. And it was like, I feel like I spent so many wasted hours just trying to 100%. Show people what I was doing.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, fun fact, then after working on this agency, I started working on La Nación, which is a newspaper in Argentina. I don't know if you know it. Yes. It's really famous right there. I started working in La Nación, and we had Sketch. We had to work with a Sketch, and I was like a heavy Figma user. So I was like, why are we working with a Sketch where you have to share files and share like libraries and stuff? And of course, 1 month later, I sold Figma inside, and then we moved everything to Figma because that was that was needed. Oh, and the pandemic then happened, so that was like, oh, this is good.
Yeah, Figma really planned that out well. Yeah, no one could have predicted, but man, like how Figma changed. That's interesting. Oh, I feel like that's like an interesting topic. How Figma helped designers in the pandemic.
Wow, that's such a nice topic. Figma was there to the collaboration on the online space. Like as for us right now, having this conversation on this online space by Zoom or like by any platform where we see our faces, Figma was there to see our cursors or pointers.
Yes.
So
I love that.
Yeah. So like, and I do believe like creating on the internet or creating an overall, it's about people and it's about creating with each other. So yeah, I can see that on Figma. Like Figma gave us that opportunity to create with each other. And I do actually remember like when we had files on Photoshop, for example, we were like, I don't want to share how I did this or how I got this. Why we
Yes.
were like that? I don't
Right. It was like,
remember.
oh, we do things our way. And like, it took me a long time to figure this out. So I don't want to share my knowledge.
Exactly. And I don't know. I think about that and I was like, I don't feel like that's nice. Like, why were we so like jealous about our work? And
Right.
I do feel like Figma gave us that opportunity to open ourselves, to share knowledge, to share experience, to share this opportunity. Like, yeah, I do feel like it's an open space for people to create.
That was very well said. I feel like that's a great quote.
Yeah.
It definitely gave us that opportunity. It definitely has a lot to do with how we collaborate today.
Yeah.
And I love what you said about like collaboration design. Like that's what at the design project we say that all the time. I tell customers that, like the designers, like while we will all kind of be working on design, like sharing and getting feedback and collaborating is really what design's about. And that's really where like multiple people coming in with ideas is really where we can create something that's perfect for the users or the problems we're solving.
Exactly, because collaboration is not just about the fact of creating, but connecting and sharing that knowledge to our users. And you can see that on the final product, how like the iterations of or fast iteration on a file were happen, and you
Yeah.
can see that on the final product. That's crazy, because like going back and forward with files, that was harder. I do believe in the iteration was harder to do.
Yeah.
So
Right. It felt
yeah.
more like final versus I think Figma allows us to be open to those iterations and knowing that everything we do is not final. Like
Exactly.
ever.
Not ever.
Okay, so I want to kind of pick back up because that was great. Our little tangent on Figma. Like obviously we're big Figma lovers over here.
Yes, 100%.
But let's go to, so you're at this agency for 5 years, you learned a lot, and you said you kind of made that jump to La Nacion. So what was your reason why? Why did you switch
I
careers?
do have an answer for that.
Okay.
It was because I wanted to jump into product. That was the moment that I say, okay, I have many tools in my head or in my hands. As I said, like management or product lead, and I wanted to jump into product to see the other point of view, because working in an agency, you see one point of view of what you're doing. You're not the client. And working in a product, it's different. It's another point of view. You're working with an agency, you work with agencies, but you're working inside of the product to create things. You have probably more a different decision or a different direction inside of a company. And that's what I wanted to experience myself. And right now, after La Nacion, I'm currently working in Bank Superville, which is a bank in Argentina, leading the design system team. And this is happening because this is something that I wanted. I wanted to work in a product. I wanted to work in product, like itself, like on the product team. This is nice, yeah. Like, because I have all the knowledge from the agency, the timing and everything, but I can deliver differently inside of the product.
Yeah. So what would you tell designers that maybe have been working in the agency and want to move to product? Like what would be your advice to land those jobs in a company where you would be diving deep into the product?
Yes. Working in an agency give you so many tools. For example, as I say, like the knowledge from other roles, or the timing to create stuff, and the feedback you get from the client, like you understand the client a lot better. And I do believe, like, for all the designers that are currently working in an agency, you are in a good place. That's really nice, because if that's a starting point, I can see a bright future on you, because agencies are like a good starting point. I'm not saying that agencies are bad. Actually, agencies are amazing. I would love to work in an agency again. But that's a good starting point to jump into product, because you will see the other part, or or the other point of view that product doesn't have, because product is using, or it's hiring the agencies to do stuff, so or to collaborate with something. So as a product part of theme, like you can do that, like that jump with that knowledge. Like you have the knowledge, you have the tools, you are in a good place, and you can jump into product like I wouldn't say easily, but yeah, you have that. That could be my advice. Like keep going and keep delivering those good stuff.
Yeah. So it's like, don't be afraid to reach out and try something new. You have those skills, you will succeed. You shouldn't be afraid to make that leap.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that. And so how do you feel the difference between, I mean, what's said out there, and my experience as well, I would like to know yours, is like agency, it's like you move really fast. A lot of people get burned out at agencies. You're doing 10,000 things versus being in a company where you're deep diving into a product. It's usually you're usually more focused and you go into more detail and you have that time. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah. I would say, like, because of my experience, there were days that I felt burnt out in an agency, because you have so many options, so many things to do. Like once you're doing a newsletter, and the other day you're doing the UI kit for a product, or then you're doing a banner, I don't know. And of course you touch a lot of things, a lot of subjects, and a lot of designs or stuff.
Yeah.
And that burned out actually exists. But inside of the product, it does too, because you're seeing the same product over and over again, So it's not about being on the agency, being on the product, that you don't get the burnt out. The burnt out is right there as a designer or as a creator, because you're always creating stuff. It's just about understanding that it's right there and that it will happen, but you will succeed about that. Like you will okay, I'm understanding that I'm having this. I would take some time off, or I will take a sip of coffee. I don't know what do you have on your hands at that moment, but it does happen everywhere. I wouldn't say that it does happen in an agency. Probably in the agency, the thing is about the timings that are a little bit more shorter. But that will help you to in the future, working on that time speed. That's crazy, of course, but you get that ability, to okay, delivering something really fast and not focusing on what doesn't matter. So yeah, I will say that.
I like what you said. It actually kind of sparked in me. So I was in my experience agency, you get kind of burned out and you are diving deep in a company, but you reminded me. So I actually did the reverse of you. I started off as a graphic designer in a corporate company, and I worked there for 4.5 years. So kind of similar to you. And then I jumped into an agency, and it was definitely slower pace. I also wasn't doing product, I was doing graphic design. So it was a little bit different, but when you were you get burnt out because you see the same thing every day, I know when I left, I was I never ever want to use, I used to know it, the hex code of lime green ever again in my life. I'm so tired of it. Or the Gotham font, I'm so tired of looking at the Gotham font. And so that you start something, there is a level of burnt out that is a little different when you work on the same thing in that same those specific details. So
exactly, you have a balance between the agency and between the product theme, or the company side. It's about that. It's about balancing that, because on the agency you get to work with so many clients and so many different stuff, and you won't get bored about what you're doing. Probably in the company you won't get bored either, but the creativity is really limited on that side.
It's just different. It's just
different. Exactly.
And I think a recommendation, I think kind of where you're helping me kind of discover is, I think it really has been really useful in my career, and it sounds like in yours, to have both of those experiences.
Yes.
I think that makes you a stronger designer overall. And it also makes you understand what you want and what you don't want, what you like, what you don't like.
Totally.
No, yes. That's great. So, okay. So you were at La Nacion. You were working deep in a product, you got them switched to Figma, yay. And then you said you kind of made that jump to the
Super
bank. What was that?
Yes.
Well, why did you decide to do that?
Yes. Well, I jump into La Nación as a product designer working with Figma and design systems, which is my core right now.
Okay.
Design systems are my thing. Like I found my heart in design system. I found them through Figma, of course, but I found them when I was in the agency the last year in the agency, where I got to open kind of like a small team of products inside of the agency, where we were like selling the clients how to deliver a better product for themselves. So that's where I found out about design systems, about giving stuff easy to use, to maintain, for others to use, because my clients are designers and developers. So I really found something right there. I moved to La Nación as a product designer, and I started creating the design system right there in La Nación, because they didn't have that much. They had like 20 type of fonts or size. Right. I was a size. 3 type of blues. And so there were like very different things in La Nación. And I was like, okay, we can do this. It's like, we can start really small. With a little bit of budget, we can deliver something good for the team, and that will impact on our clients. And that's how the sellout happened inside La Nación. So I started working on the design system. 1 year later, I got a call from Superview about, hey, we're looking for a design system person. This is the first time, because in Latin America, it's really new, the things about design systems. Companies are starting to use it, or to buy in that conversation or the idea of having that product inside of the company. So I got this call from Superbig Bank. We had to start from scratch, the design system there. And something really nice or clever about this challenge that I got to happen was the fact that it wasn't just not create the design system from scratch, but also do a little bit of rebrand on the UI part of the product. So it started like it is a really good challenge. Right now, after 1 year and a half, I do believe, where we have a solid design system with a solid team that it's using it and creating it. Something really good about this team that we have is that we don't only have the design on the UI, on the designer part, but also on the developer part. So maintaining that, it's like really good, and giving that to the team, to our clients, it's really good, because people like can create more in more consistency, more efficiently, more connected to each other. Because somehow having the components or having the same styles, you can connect with other designers about the businesses that you're making.
I mean, this is great. I didn't know that design systems, I guess it was in your LinkedIn, but okay, now I have more questions. I think this is great. I think design systems are amazing. I definitely think what you said, like about LATAM not being, I think that's everyone. I think there's so many companies that are just starting to see the light and appreciate, if they invest the time and effort now, that they're going to save themselves so much time and effort in the future. And all the teams are just going to work so much better collaboratively, kind of going back to our earlier conversation about working collaboratively. So that's amazing. So my question to you is, like, say there's a designer listening that loves design systems and would like to maybe implement them in their company, or kind of start that. What would your advice be to give to them to be able to have those conversations with their teams?
Yes, that's awesome. I will say, like, you can, to have a good selling about a design system, you can share the benefits of it. Okay. And sharing the benefits of a design system is really easy by creating something really small. As I did in La Nación, you know, I started like, we can do this really small and really uh, not on the daily schedules. Like we can do this on the side.
Yeah.
And that's a good advice I could do. Like you can start really small and show the benefits of it. You can start on design. You shouldn't start on developer right away. You can start on the design team, on the 3 collaborators, 5 collaborators on your team. Like, hey, what if we do this bottom? Because the bottom is a basic one. What if we do this bottom and we start reusing it everywhere? And I would say like start really small, show the benefits, and that would be my advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this design system sells itself, like it's really, of course, companies are not like really good about the knowledge of it, and that's probably the hardest part of getting the adoption of the design systems. The people don't know how to use it, or they don't know it does exist, or what a design system is, you know? Probably the people are not knowing about something.
Yes, right. If they know nothing and you're like, hey, look what we can do. Look at the capabilities. It's like,
Exactly.
like you said, it sells itself. Like there's really like nothing, no reason not to commit to at least a small
part, and it will sell itself. Like, okay, we need this. Because working without it, people start creating separately. At the end of the day, of course, creating separately works, but it's more time and effort putting into something that can be shareable.
Right. Okay, one of my last questions, because I'm curious about, so I love design systems, and I would like, I know that I want to explore it further. I'm definitely not a design system expert. What is the biggest challenge you've had up to this date with design systems?
My biggest challenge with design systems was not creating it, but creating the habit on people to adopt it. Because a design system is something that lives forever and it grows forever. It's a product itself. Like you have to maintain it, and you have to go into your clients and understand the feedback. What do they need? What do you need to make the design system better from my side, so I can give you the tools to use it. That is definitely the hardest challenge, the adoption. Yeah.
Totally. And that makes sense, especially like people that don't know the benefits. It's hard to change behaviors. It's like so hard to change behaviors.
Yes. But at the end of the day, it pays off, seriously. When people start using it and understand that it does help their daily basics, they start loving it somehow, and like they do really want it. Probably the hardest part too is the developers, because probably in design we have Figma and we can share stuff and it's easier to see. But in the developer part, it's harder probably, because they do really work, or the people that create as a developer really work more individually. Of course, like that mindset is changing right now with the collaboration and the streaming and stuff, but probably developers don't have a tool as we do as Figma, as designers. Yes. Open source exists, I know, but it's not something that you can see or play, because in Figma you can play, you can have high five and stuff. So yeah.
Love the high five. That's a really great point, is like, as us designers get more comfortable and developers start to see the benefits of Figma, I definitely think the developer side of, well, we were talking about the collaboration, how we were like, oh, I don't want to show you how I do things, and now how it's kind of turning into this collaborative environment, that it's definitely going to start moving towards other parts of the process, like development. Yeah, that's going to be 100%. Interesting to watch.
Yes, definitely.
Well, awesome. Yeah, I love talking about design systems. I like want to pick your brain more, but I won't right now.
Okay.
So I guess like the kind of the final question that I usually ask is like, where do you see yourself going? Where do you see yourself in a year, in 5 years? What is your career trajectory from here?
Well, that's nice. As I say, I'm like a really design system fan, and I see myself creating or maintaining or building other design systems and helping each other and help other people, other teams to start creating theirs. Because I'm a really pro collaborator type of guy. So design systems kind of help you do that. Some fun fact about this conversation is that design systems, the clients are the designers and the developers, of course. So those clients are right next to you, so you can ask them questions. You can create a better product with your client next to you. Sometimes when you're creating something, a product that is used by millions of users, probably the user, it's really far from you. But a design system is something like really small and really intimate, that you can ask questions and you can get feedback right away and you can improve right away. And that's something really nice about design systems, because your client is right next to you. Your designer, or the designer that is using it, is sitting in the chair right next to you. That's nice.
That's interesting. Your design, your users are there. You can easily get access to them and can make the design system even better.
Exactly. Yes.
I love that. Well said. So I am excited to follow your journey and everything that's going to happen with design systems in the future.
Yes.
You'll be my first one to go to when I'm like, oh, what to do with design systems in Figma? Tell me all the things.
Of course, just text me and I will tell you.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Yorbi. This was a really great conversation. I really enjoyed kind of learning about your background. I think it's going to be really interesting for our listeners to get some tidbits on how to grow and maybe potentially start working on design systems in their own company. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a really good chat and I really love it. Thank you so much.
Of course. We'll chat soon.
Yes.